Hello viewers, I'm Ron Grant coming to you live and direct from Tortola in the Virgin Islands. The rich heritage and history of the British Virgin Islands is a story that must be told. I'm honored today to be joined by one of the persons who have helped chart the way when it comes to education. He's an author, and while he's retired, he's making his contributions to the British Virgin Islands in the way of writing. I am speaking about the one and only Dr. Charles Wheatley, former president of the H. Lavity Style Community College. He has served as a teacher. He has served in various capacities in education, and today we're going to have a conversation about some of his amazing work, which I'm honored to present. We'll be right back after a quick commercial break.
Yo, everything good, Dad?
Aye. This thing got me one way, Daddy.
What do you mean?
Ever since I hook up with this thing, can't eat, I can't sleep. This is the first thing I touch it when I reach home.
What do you really? Hey, this ain't like you,
Dad, this thing got me staying home, keeping out that trouble me.
Wow. What's your name is?
Shit, I talking about my CCT life.
Don't worry about missing your favorite series, sports, news, and local programming. Come to CCT today and sign up for CCT Live to access over 80 channels. CCT Live. Bring it home.
1 month free trial turn into 5. 5 months turn into, well, you know I huff. I watching ball. I been watching football. Dad, Nickelodeon, Paw Patrol. I am hooked. Hook, I tell you.
Viewers, welcome back and thank you so much for sticking with us. You're watching 284 Media and I'm Ron Grant. Dr. Charles Wheatley, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to our studios and congratulations on your amazing piece of work that you have released and you continue to release. So thank you. You have been contributing significantly, Dr. Wheatley, to the British Virgin Islands in a number of capacities, mostly through education, of course. And recently you've taken up the mantle of sharing and writing and chronicling, really, the history and heritage and the way forward in the British Virgin Islands on a number of topics, from education to our emancipation to religion. Why have you thought it necessary to share your work and your experience through We Takes with the public? How did We Takes come about?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here to share a few of my thoughts with you and all who are listening. I usually sent out, before I started We Take, inspiration messages to my friends on WhatsApp daily, and it automatically grew into We Take when I discovered that there was a need for some more knowledge on certain topics about the past and how we live, and to share my thoughts and my experiences with the public in general. So that's how it began.
Understood. Now, you're an author as well. You have published 3 books, and I'm honored to have one with me, which is titled Heritage and Hope. Of course, in this book, you are finding, you say, my purpose in Virgin Islands culture. The time frame is 1938 to 1963. Tell us about this particular piece of work.
That particular publication tells the story of my first 25 years. It's a story of growing up in East End and the culture in which I grew up, and the life of the village, and my involvement in various activities during that time, and so forth. It's kind of a memoir of my 25 years.
Understood. Having really observed, of course, we are experiencing some very turbulent times now more than ever in a number of ways, politically, on the economic front, and of course, when we look at the relationship with the United Kingdom, of course, there are a lot of things that Virgin Islanders would say we're having a difficult time with. When you reflect on your time, not only as a young man, but your time in the civil service, your time as an educator, what are some of the most pivotal moments in history that you could remember and you would say those were significant moments for you in Virgin Islands history?
Well, I would not go beyond the 40s because the experiences there would be much more limited. But if we begin from the 1940s, and we look at the challenges we had and the different experiences that people had, we find that the influence of World War II on the BVI was very strong, especially as the United States was building a naval base in St. Thomas. Hundreds of our men went over there to work, and that the incomes and so forth influenced life in the BVI, along with the fact that we always had a socioeconomic relationship with the U.S. Virgin Islands. But that particular project had a marked influence on the life of BVI. At the same time, while that was happening, there was an awakening among the people in general on various aspects of life. For instance, people wanted a secondary school. There was no secondary school in the Virgin Islands at that time. There was only there were only the elementary schools, which took children from the 5 years to 16 or 15, and they ended with what you call the traditional name standard 7 certificate.
Okay.
Beyond that, anyone who wanted a secondary education would go to Antigua or St. Kitts or any one of them and do their studies there. The local people were very angry about that, and they rose up and demanded that they have secondary education for the students in the British Virgin Islands. And it started with a small project called the Senior School in 1943. And for the next 5 years, it was an experiment which generated a lot of anti-feelings, and there was a lot of back and forth. In other words, it was like a battle between the government and the people, because the type of school the government wanted to give, the people did not want it, and the people wanted a full-fledged secondary school. So that 5 years with the senior school was a battle, and it finally ended with the secondary school, which was established in 1948. That was one of the struggles that you had in the 40s. We had other struggles with medical situations, because in the 1940s, the medical doctor, for instance, in one case, he was the commissioner, he was the postmaster, he was the customs officer, everything. And he was like a little dictator, and he was also the medical doctor. You might have heard his name, Dr. Wheatley. Okay. That was the one that had all of those positions. But the whole thing was that in the 1940s, it was kind of dictatorship by the commissioner more than anything else, because there was no legislative council. And the executive council which you had was just merely there as a rubber stamp, because they didn't have any power really.
When you observe some of the many aspects of struggle that you have just described, are there any similarities, Dr. Wheatley, to what we're facing presently in the history and heritage of the Virgin Islands?
Today?
Yes.
Yes, as I wrote in one of my retakes, what we are going through today is similar to what we went through in the 1940s, particularly in 1949, where people were demanding, in other words, the British government, through the governor in Antigua, dominated life in the BVI in every way. People had no say. They controlled everything. And that was done through the commissioner, who was the deputy of the governor. So that just as you would find that the power in this today has been given to the governor in many areas. So it was in those days, so that the commissioner was king, just as it is today with the governor being
Correct.
totally in charge. So that's a big similarity.
Now, when you observe, Dr. Wheatley, the rich culture, when you really put into perspective what it means to be a Virgin Islander, what are you most proud of as being a Virgin Islander and calling yourself a Virgin Islander?
Well, Virgin Islanders are resilient people. They have fought their battles in life to survive ever since emancipation in 1834. They devised means of transportation by building a type of boat, which we call the Tortola boat. Is no more because the government didn't support it after the yachts began coming in and people moved from sailing them. But those were the boats that survived, that took people's products to the Virgin Islands and other places, and bought other products and so forth. They survived by doing that. They were agriculturists and they were very strong in that respect. But most of all, they were very religious people. They had a strong faith in God. And, they always strive to be, I would say, very helpful to one another. That is one of the aspects of life which help people to survive, because people related to one another very much in our communities. For instance, there was no problem with a farmer, well, I would say an ordinary agriculturist who kept animals, butchering a bull, butchering a cow or calf or any animal, and sharing the meat with the neighbors.
Indeed.
Not selling it, just give neighbors over the times. There was also another element where people sometimes never scratch a match. They would go to their neighbors for a live coal of fire, because they had a method of preserving the live coals in ashes after they had cooked a meal. So if one neighbor's coals happened to die, they would just go to the next neighbor and get a live coal and start another fire. So they share fire.
Understood. One of the things that I'm getting from that comparison and that reflection is really that it took a village to raise a child. A village had an opportunity, a village had a say. And one of the things, Dr. Wheatley, that I want to speak about is because we're often hearing of that reflection. It took a village to raise a child, or it takes a village to raise a child, rather. What would you say the village role?
Well,
Please.
The village was the watchman for every child in the village. Let's put it that way. In my growing up, for instance, any adult who saw me doing anything out of the ordinary, which was not approved by the culture of the day or norms and the values, they would speak to me. And if I didn't do what they said, they would complain me to my parents, and my parents would correct me. But there was always an acceptance by the parents of these complaints. And which is much different from today, where you would find that parents will not, easily accept complaints about their children from other people. But parents of all parents in the community could look out for children wherever they are, and they could speak to them and correct them and instruct them,
Understood. We spoke about heritage and hope, finding my purpose in Virgin Islands culture. Can you tell me about your other two pieces of work that you published prior to this most recent?
Well, finding my purpose was a matter of meandering through all those experiences that I have mentioned and others, living within the culture, living within people in different vocations of life, trying to find out what you really want to do, relating to people in different ways. You will notice that you may not have read the book, but I grew up with 3 friends.
Okay.
And we went around as a quad. There's 4 of us together. And we were living in the same village. But there was a big difference because the 3 of them were against me in the sense that what I stood for was contrary to what they stood for.
Understood.
But we still grew up together, shared activities, and enjoyed life together, but we knew where to draw the line. For instance, those fellows love cigarettes and they love alcohol. I'll give you 2 examples, but they knew they had to come to me with that.
Understood.
Because I was not interested. Well, I wouldn't go in any more detail, but, so that was a matter of finding your way, because they challenged me at times, They would challenge me at times, and you had to stand up strong in order to survive. And also in the wider community, there was a lot of challenges, which sometimes, if you were not strong enough, you would succumb to.
I'm so glad that you mentioned challenges and being able to stand up as an individual and continue to find your purpose. Because in this day and age, we have a lot of young people, my colleagues, my friends, counterparts, who are apprehensive about essentially finding their purpose because they're being challenged. What would you say to the younger generation, my peers, the peers of your granddaughters? What would you encourage them as it pertains to not only Virgin Islands history and heritage, but continuously making sure that they're leaving a mark? What are your words of encouragement to my generation?
First of all, you need to look inside yourself and try to find out who you are. And in doing that, find out what are the values that you want to use to condition your life to follow, and to begin to chart your life according to what you see as your aspirations in life. So it's a matter of processing yourself first, understanding who you are, developing your own views on life, and then relating to others according to those views.
Now, with all that you've experienced, Dr. Wheatley, I have to ask you, what would you say is next for Charles Wheatley?
What would I say is what?
What's next for Charles Wheatley?
For me?
Yes.
It's interesting. I live day by day. I don't plan too far ahead, try to cope with the challenges that emerge every day, because every day is different, even though there are similarities.
Understood.
I have my goal of reaching out to people and helping to make the community as a better place for everybody in whatever way I can. That's my main goal, really. And we take as one of those avenues for helping in that respect, sending out messages that I know would help to inspire people.
And that I want to thank you for so much, because your continuous encouragement through your words are truly significant, because take for example, persons like myself who may not always be aware of the journey and how we've gotten to the point where we are. I do appreciate persons like yourself taking the time to write. Of course, we here at 284 Media continue to share your commentary. Dr. Wheatley, before we go, what should Virgin Islanders be paying most attention to at this point?
Well, in the BVI, life has changed tremendously over the last 50 years or more. It has changed because the demographics in the community has changed, and the cultural mix we have is much different from what I grew up in. The economic situation is different from what I grew up in. The influence of the outer world is stronger and different from what we knew. So what young people need to do today is to try to understand the way the world is moving, try to understand the way the territory is moving in relation to the world, because we live in a global community. And we cannot think that because we are in a small country that we are by ourselves, we are greatly influenced by the world in general. So that it's a matter of trying to understand how we fit into the global view of life, how things are moving, and try to make sure that our values are not eroded, and we try to ensure that they are passed on to generations still unborn by recording them in various ways. You have a lot of opportunities to do that now with the media that we have. And I would say that we need to be a little more in an outreach mode to one another. Mm-hmm. I think there's too much selfishness in the community. We have lost a lot of that. There was more of that in the past. But we have to realize that we are interconnected. Each one of us is interconnected with the other. We need, as if we are holding hands. And we have to understand that and build up one another instead of destroying one another, as some of us do. So I would say be positive, be cooperative, and be supportive of one another as you go through, because it is only together we can survive.
Well said, Dr. Wheatley. Once again, I want to take this opportunity to not only thank you for your presence here today, but I want to thank you for really taking perspective and sharing your work through We Takes. Viewers, if you have not already got on to the We Takes, it's weekly commentary from Dr. Charles Wheatley, who continuously shares his insights on some of the happenings and comparisons to what's happening today versus what happened in years gone by. Of course, I want to encourage you, if you have not already done so, to get his work. I'm holding, of course, the most recent Heritage and Hope, which is his memoir chronicling, of course, finding my purpose in Virgin Islands culture, which signaled the date of 1938 to 1963. Dr. Charles Wheatley, we appreciate you here at 284 Media. I think as a Virgin Islands community, I can holistically say also that we appreciate you. I want to wish you the very best as you continue to chart your course and leave your mark as always. We appreciate you and we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and I'm always available anytime to share any aspect of life that I may have experienced with the population through your medium.
We will certainly most definitely take advantage of your insight and your expertise. Viewers, that is all the time we have. I'm Ron Grant reporting for 284 Media. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Bye-bye.